Okay, friends, today we will be learning basically about the Hebrew accents. So these are all some of the Hebrew accents and their functions that we will be learning in this class. Atna, Siluk, Monna, and Metek. All right. What are accents and why do we need accents in the Hebrew language? So every Hebrew word, if you see, is marked with an accent, or in other words, a stress. So when we read a word in English or in our mother tongue, there are syllables, there are sections where you will give a stress. Okay. And usually in Hebrew, the last syllable is the syllable which will carry the accent. Okay, which is otherwise called as tone syllable. Okay, or in other words, we haven't learned about the syllables, but then let me give you some idea about it. If you look at this word here, davar, davar. Okay, so there are two vowels. So since there are two vowels, there are two syllables are there. Da is one syllable and var is another syllable. So if you see here, you see Dalit, you see Kamets, you see Bet, you see Kamets again, and you see Resh. You don't see any other signs. So in this case, if you see uh, the last syllable, which is bar, is the tone syllable. So you have to stress that syllable when you read. Da bar, da bar. Okay, so the stress is given to the last syllable. So this is the usual practice in Hebrew language. So that means you don't see any accent sign there, but it is understood that the last syllable should be technically the tone syllable or it has to be stressed. Okay. So this is the basic idea in a Hebrew word. Okay. So the stress in these words will be indicated by an accent mark placed on the top or under the letter. For example, the example which I have shown is an example to say that you don't see any accent signs here. Okay. But accent signs will appear in Hebrew. And what type of accent signs will appear and what are the functions that we will learn. So if you see in Hebrew language, there are many different kinds of texts or literature that we can see in the Hebrew Bible. There are prose texts. For example, there are texts where the narration has been done, narrative texts. When we narrate the history, there are texts which are called as poetic texts, like Job or Proverbs, and there are also Psalms, which can also come under the category of poetic texts or Proverbs. Okay. So there are so many accents in Hebrew. 27 prose accents and 21 poetic accents are there in Hebrew. But we are not going to see all those accents. All right. So we are going to see only the basic accents in this class. All right. So already I said that in any Hebrew word, accent will be there. That means the last syllable should be stressed while reading. You will not see any accent mark, but it is understood that the last syllable is the tone syllable. When I say accented syllable, it is the tone syllable where you need to stress. Fine. Now, there are accents or accent signs in Hebrew which will indicate that accents also should be, stress also should be given to the place where these accents are kept. Okay. So to make it very simple, in any Hebrew word, the last syllable is the accented syllable and you will not see any sign. Rarely you will see. more than 90%, you will not see any sign. All right. So it is understood that the last syllable should be stressed. But if we need stress in other syllables, how we can do it? And that is what done by other accents. So the first type of accent is called as munna. If you look at the form of munna, okay, in the notes in the text which I have given here I have ended with aleph, and underneath aleph, if you see, you can see a mark. Okay, you can see a mark which is like the opposite form of L. All right, it is very small. So this sign is called as munna, and this munna is an accent. Okay, so what is the purpose of this munna? Wherever this munna is kept, that syllable has to be stressed. Okay, so that means always we have learned that the last syllable is the syllable which has to be stressed, and you will not see any sign. But if you see munna in the first syllable or second syllable, rarely you will see in the last syllable, but it may appear in the first syllable or second syllable. So if you see munna in a syllable, you have to understand that there is an accent given for that particular syllable. Okay, so if there is a need for extra stress, this munna is used. Or some grammarians, they will say that when munna is there in any of the syllables other than the last syllable, it is understood that the accent has been shifted from the last syllable to the first syllable. So that means usually the last syllable receives the accent, and there is no accent sign for that. It is understood. But in case in a word, if you see a munna, you have to understand that this syllable has to be stressed, and this can also be like the stress has been shifted from the last syllable to the syllable where munna is placed. Okay, so here are some examples which will help us to understand more. Melek, melek. So if you see here, I am giving stress to melek. Okay, so why I am giving stress? Because the first syllable is carrying munna. Okay, so munna, whenever munna is placed, we can say that, okay, stress has to be given. And another form of understanding this is that the tone syllable is now munna, because the stress has been shifted from the last syllable to the syllable where munna is placed. Okay, so this munna you will see whenever you read the text. So if you keep it in mind, the purpose and function of munna, then when we read the text, we will be able to understand. The other examples, if you see, zayin, zayin. Okay, so even though pata is a short vowel, I am stressing there because it is carrying munna. Next example, dalat, dalat. Okay, so I am stressing da because munna is there. Aleph, I am stressing a because munna is there. All right, so this is the basic understanding. Okay, so the foundational principle is that in any Hebrew word, the last syllable will be the accented syllable. In case if you see munna in any other syllable apart from the last syllable, then it has to be understood that that particular syllable has to be stressed. So this is one of the basic accents in Hebrew. Now we will move on to some basic accents that you should understand when you read a verse. Okay, so can anyone read this verse? Very easy.
Bereshit bara Elohim et Hasham viat ha'ari.
Bereshit bara Elohim yet Hashamayim, because that shin is carrying dagesh forte. So Hashamayim ve'et. Okay, so the shiva underneath vav has to be hurried. Ve'et ha a. So two comments you see. Ha a rates. All right, very good. Nice reading. Okay, so in a verse in Hebrew, you will not have any punctuation. You will not have comma, full stop. But only the accents will indicate where we need to give a pause. Only the accents will help us to understand which is the first half of the verse, which is the second half of the verse, where the verse ends. Okay, so if you see here, three basic accents will appear in a Hebrew verse. One is to mark the first half of the verse, the other one is to mark the second half of the verse, and the third one is to mark, that or give an indication that the verse is ending or the verse ends. Okay, all right. So Bereshit bara Elohim. So if you look at Elohim, you can see that under he, Elohim, okay, you see a small red mark. Okay, so which is like an inverted form of V. Okay, so that is called as Atna. That is called as Atna. So what is the purpose of Atna? Atna indicates that this is the first half of the verse. You don't see a comma there. So Atna functions like a comma. Bereshit bara Elohim. So I am giving a pause. Et hashamayim ve et haaretz. All right, fine. Now, some of the basic things that is that has to be understood along with this Atna is that where Atna is placed. If you see where Atna is placed under the accented syllable of the last word of the first half of the verse. Okay, little complicated. Atna is placed under the accented syllable. Okay, Atna is placed under the accented syllable. Atna is placed under the accented syllable of the last word of the first half of the verse. So if you see here, Elohim is the last word of the first half of the verse. So where Atna is placed under him. So where Atna is placed under the accented syllable, or in other words, the tone syllable. So Elohim, always in the Hebrew word, the last syllable is the accented syllable, and you don't see any accent sign here. And it is an indication that him is the tone syllable. Okay, so this is the basic understanding. Atna is an disjunctive accent.
So I have a doubt.
Accent, yes, please.
So if that Atna comes, it means that we have to make a pause after that word. Is that the meaning?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it functions like a comma.
So then how can we understand that this word is the half of that word? Half of that word?
Because Atna is there.
No, that we can understand by reading it. If you are writing a sentence in Hebrew, So if you want to place an atna somewhere like that, is it?
We are learning actually classical biblical Hebrew where the text
Okay.
is already existing. We are not
Okay.
going to create any text. So
Okay.
when we read the text, by looking at these accents, we will understand, okay, here I need to give a pause.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that is the purpose. So the grammar has been designed for the text
Okay.
because
Okay.
this is, yeah, classical Hebrew. Okay, so this is not modern Hebrew. Fine. All right. So the first half is finished. So these accents are called as disjunctive accents because they are, telling us, helping us to understand which is the first part, which is the second part, which is the first half, which is the second half, and so on and so forth. All right. So first half I have understood now. So where is the second half? If you see the second half, et hashamayim ve et haaretz. Haaretz. Okay, so in haaretz you see a small vertical stroke mentioned in red color. Okay, along with segol. So it is haaretz. So this accent or sign, accent sign is called as siluk. Siluk. S-I-L-L-U-Q. Siluk. So what is the purpose of siluk? Siluk will be placed in the accented syllable of the last word of the second half of the verse. So siluk will be placed under the accented syllable of the last word of the second half of the verse or the last half of the verse. Okay. So how Atna helped us to understand that it is the first half, and Siluk is helping us to understand that, okay, it is ending the verse.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, madam.
Sir, actually, this accents should also be placed like patak for tuka, like in the middle of.
Along with the vowels, the accents will be placed. For example, if you see Elohim, Atna is placed along with the Hirakyot. And here, if you see, it is placed along with Segol. So that appears along with the vowels only. So we will not be confused. Why? Because if we are familiar with the vowels, okay, separately, and familiar with the accents separately, we will not have any confusion. Okay, so in the course of time, we will understand that.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yep. And then now Siluk is like looking like a vertical stroke. All right. So now, if you see Siluk in the last word of the second half of the verse, immediately it will be followed by another accent which is called as Sof Pasuk. Sof Pasuk. So Sof Pasuk is nothing but it's like, full stop. It looks like a colon. It looks like, two dots, but in a bigger form. So this indicates that the verse ends. The verse ends. Okay. So soon after Siluk, you will see Sof Pasuk. So if a word is carrying Siluk, that word will end with Sof Pasuk, which is the full stop. Okay. So this is a sure indication that the verse is ending. Okay. So don't be confused, because the next slide will show an accent which has the same form like Siluk. Okay. But when you understand the purpose of Siluk, you will not be confused. Siluk, if you come across Siluk, if you have any confusion whether it is Siluk or not, you have to look at the end of that word which carries siluk. If it is siluk, then sof pasuk will appear. Sof pasuk is like full stop, saying that the verse is ending or the verse comes to an end. Okay, so these three elements you need to keep in mind when you are reading a verse. Okay, so this is what I have mentioned here in the notes, which you can also see in the class notes which I have circulated. All right. So the first thing which we have learned is any Hebrew word, the last syllable is the accented syllable. There will not be any sign. But if you have a sign which is called as munna in any of the syllables apart from the last one, you can understand that the stress has been shifted from the last syllable to the syllable where munna has been placed. Then we learned about the disjunctive accents, the accents which help us to understand which is the first half, which is the second half, and where the verse ends. Atna is a mark which helps us to understand that this is the first half of the verse, and there needs to be a pause given. The second half of the verse or the end of the verse is marked with siluk, which will be immediately followed by sof pasuk at the end of that word. All right. Okay. So this one you have to keep in mind. Now, the next accent is called as methek, which is called as, secondary accent. Secondary accent. Please look at the example here. I have mentioned aleph, and underneath aleph you have siluk. Okay, sorry, underneath aleph you see methek. What is the form of methek here? Hello, I hope all are active.
A vertical line.
Yeah,
A
it looks
vertical
like
line.
what?
It looks like siluk.
Looks like siluk.
Siluk.
Exactly. Okay. So you may think that it will cause confusion. No, it will not cause confusion. Why? Because siluk will always appear in the last word of the second half of the verse. And if you have any confusion, you have to look at the end of the verse, whether sof pasuk is appearing or not. Okay, fine. Now we need to understand the function of methek step by step, where methek appears. Number one, it is used to mark long vowels that stand one or more syllables before the tone syllable of a word in order to ensure that the long vowels are given proper stress in pronunciation. It appears two or three syllables before the tone syllable. Always the last syllable is the tone syllable unless and until a munna appears. So if methek is appearing with a long vowel, okay, two or three syllables before the tone syllable, we need to understand that the Masoretes have mentioned methek along with the long vowel to ensure that stress will be given to that long vowel along with the tone syllable. Okay, so here the long vowel which is carrying methek is not the tone syllable. The tone syllable is the last syllable. The tone syllable is the accented syllable which appears as the last syllable. But along with the stress that you give to the last syllable, the syllable which carries methek, especially the long vowel, should also be given stress. Okay, all right. So if you look at the examples which I have given here, okay, Lara Kia. Okay, Lara Kia. So Lara Ki is the tone syllable. Okay, so what is that one small horizontal stroke appears underneath The last letter.
Lamed. Lamed, no?
Manoj,
And then Lamed, right?
Genesis 1:8. 1:8.
1 8.
Genesis 1:8. Underneath Ayin.
That is
Pata.
Super. Patafutu. Okay, so what is the purpose of Patafutu?
A short, hurried A sound.
Exactly. What is the purpose? Why it is placed there?
Because that consonant is guttural, and it is placed in between a guttural and a long vowel.
Yes. But to be more clear, always gutturals like ayin, he, het, they prefer to have A class vowels before them.
Yes.
So when there is a presence of unchangeably long vowels, which are actually from other class vowels, like O or U or E, what happens? There is a need for hurried A sound. So that is why this patafuti is placed. So that appears in between the unchangeable long vowel and
Guttural.
the guttural. Yes. So that is the purpose here. All right. So if you see
I
Lara Kia,
have a question here. Will
yes.
the guttural be then pronounced or not pronounced?
In this case, ayin cannot be
Lara
pronounced.
ki a, matlab, will it be
Lara
pronounced
ki,
or not pronounced?
guttural will not be pronounced, but patafuti
Yeah,
will be pronounced.
yeah.
Patafuti will be pronounced. Patafuti is an hurried A sound. If there is a khet, you will pronounce it. Okay. Ayin and alaf cannot be pronounced. Understood?
Yes, sir. Understood.
Yeah. So here, if you see Lara Kia, in this case, if you see Lamet, the first letter is carrying kamets. Along with kamets, you see a methek.
Metic.
Yes. So the purpose of this methek is to stress the long vowel along with the tone syllable or the accented syllable, which is the last syllable. Second example, haromeshet. Haromeshet. Okay, so shet is the accented syllable. Along with that, you give stress to ha. Leminehem. Leminehem. Okay, if you see here, methek is placed with me. Okay, the tone syllable is hem. All right, leminehem. Okay, so this is the first purpose. So methek may appear along with a long vowel. Okay, one or two syllables before the tone syllable. In order to ensure that stress should be given to the long vowel along with the tone syllable, which is the last syllable. This is the basic meaning. Second function. You may see methek appearing with short vowels that stand immediately before the compound shivas. It is often used with the short vowels that stand immediately before compound shivas. Okay, all right. Let us understand this by reading the examples. The first one, Stephen Sahil, can you read the first one, Genesis 1:26?
Nasia.
Se. Okay, nun, you have pata, then ayin cannot be pronounced, but atef pata is there. Then sin is there, followed by segol, and then the final letter is he. Naase. Okay, so in Naase, if you see, the first letter is carrying pata, pata is carrying metek. So metek appears along with a short vowel immediately before the compound shiva. Okay, and there is a technique here. This will always happen when the guttural is carrying hatef patta. Okay, when gutturals are carrying hatef patta, hatef vowels like hatef patta or hatef segol or hatef kamans. If the gutturals are carrying any one of these compound or composite shivas, the previous letters will always take the corresponding vowel of the composite or compound shivas. For example, say if you see, Nun is having patta. Why? Because Ain is carrying hatef patta. If you look at the last example, Genesis 35:3, say, in this case, if you see, the segol is carrying metek. Okay, segol is carrying metek. And then if you see how segol appears here, the guttural is carrying hatef segol. So the corresponding vowel is segol. So that is why segol is appearing before hatef segol, and which has to receive metek. Okay, so the next function is that metek will appear along with the short vowels immediately before the compound or composite shivas. The third place where you will see metek is that it can also appear before either long or short vowel. Okay, it will appear with either long or short vowels that stand immediately before simple vocal shiva. Okay, so it will be used with either long or short vowels that stand immediately before simple vocal shiva. So if you see a vocal shiva and the previous letter is carrying either a long or short vowel, you may see a metek. Okay, usually if you see a vocal shiva, letter with vocal shiva, the previous letter will always carry a long vowel. Okay, but in some cases you will also see short vowels. All right, so the point here is it will appear either with a long or short vowel before simple vocal shiva. So when you see metek along with short vowel, you can understand that shiva is not a silent shiva but a vocal shiva. Okay, vocal shiva. You have to understand that. Okay, so then the next rule is metek appears either with a long or short vowel. Okay, that stands immediately before simple vocal shiva. The last point about metek is that it is always used with unchangeably long vowels that stand before makaf. Okay, so what is makaf? Let me tell you about makaf and then come to this metek point. Okay, so makaf is simply a horizontal stroke. If you look at this example, Kol Israel, it is not Kal Israel, it is Kol Israel because it is Kamat Satuf. Okay, so we will understand what is the difference between Kamat and Kamat Satuf today. So Kol Israel. So in Kol Israel, if you see that Kol and Israel are joined together with the help of a horizontal stroke. So this horizontal stroke is called as makaf. So the role of makaf is to join 2 or 3 words together and to make them as one speech unit. So if you read the Hebrew Bible, you will encounter with makaf joining together 2 or 3 words and making them as one speech unit. Okay. So the point, another point, what you have to understand here with regard to makaf is that whenever makaf is joined, 2 or 3 words are joined together, the first word will carry a short vowel. the first word will carry a short vowel. Okay, so even it is a long vowel, it will be shortened if it is a changeably long vowel. But unchangeably long vowels cannot be shortened. Okay, so in that case only, this method is appearing along with the unchangeably long vowels that appear before method. Okay, so what I said was method, will appear. Makaf is used to join 2 or 3 words. In that case, the first word will carry a short vowel. And then, okay, if that first word is carrying an unchangeably long vowel, then a method sign will be placed along with it. Okay, so what you have to understand here is that even though it is an unchangeably long vowel, it should not give any stress, because Makaf is used to join 2 or 3 words, and automatically the stress will come to the last syllable of the last word in that chain of words. If 1, 2, 3 words are there joined together with Makaf, the last syllable will be the accented syllable. The first syllable or the first word will not be the accented syllable. So in that case, in order to make sure about the presence of the long vowel and not to stress too much, method is placed along with the unchangeably long vowels before Makaf. Makaf is an horizontal stroke which helps to join 2 or 3 words together and to make us one speech unit. Okay, so these are the 4 different functions of method. The first function is that it is placed along with the long vowel 2 or 3 syllables before the tone syllable, in order to ensure that the long vowel should be given stress along with the tone syllable. The second rule is it will appear with short vowels that stand before compound shivas. Then the next one is it will appear either with a long or short vowel before simple vocal shiva. So whenever you see a simple vocal shiva and before the previous word carrying a method along with pata, that is short vowel, then you can definitely say that the shiva in the next letter is a vocal shiva, not a silent shiva. The last rule is method will be placed along with the unchangeably long vowel before Makaf. Okay, in order to ensure that the unchangeably long vowel should not be stressed too much. All right. So just a recap. Accents, always the last syllable is the accented syllable. Munna, when munna is placed in 2 or 3 syllables before the accented syllable, it has to be understood that the stress has been shifted from the last syllable to the syllable where munna is placed. Disjunctive accents, atna, siluk, sof, pasuk. Atna helps us to indicate or mark or understand or identify the first half of the verse. So the last word of the first half of the verse, especially the accented syllable, will carry atna. The last word of the last half of the verse, especially the accented syllable, will carry silok. Okay, and that will be immediately followed by sof pasuk. That is the end of that verse. Methak is a secondary accent which looks like siluk, but it should not be confused, because siluk appears only at the end of a verse and it will be followed by sof pasuk, and methak has different functions. Okay, all right. Now we have understood about Kamets and Kamet Satuf. Now, how to differentiate Kamets and Kamet Satuf? Kamets is A class vowel, Kamet Satuf is O class vowel, short O class vowel. Fine, right. In an unaccented closed syllable, if you see, okay, a Kamets, that is Kamet Satuf. Okay, or nan, that is the first example, or nan. Okay, I am reading it as or nan, or nan. So aleph Hatef Pata, which is O, Resh followed by simple local Shiva, Nun, Kamats, and final Nun, or Nan. Okay, so or is one syllable, Nan is another syllable, or Nan. Okay, and the rule says that in or, that is one syllable, if you see a kamats in an unaccented closed syllable, or if you see alap is there, kamats is there, resh is there, silent shiva is there, you don't come across any signs there. I mean the accent sign there. So it is unaccented closed syllable. In that case, it is okay. Kamats hatu. So if you come across a kamats in an unaccented closed syllable, it is a kamats hatuf and not kamats. It's a O class vowel and not an A class vowel. The next place where you can see kamats hatuf, before makaf. Before makaf. Okay. Let me read this word for you. Kol ha'am. Kol ha'am. Kol, if you see, kol, if you see, it is basically from the vowel holam. So, if this kol is written without the help of makaf, without joining together with other words, it will be written as kof, holam, and lamet. Kof, holam, and lamet. Now, since it is placed with makaf, the long vowel has been shortened to kamats hatuf, and which is it's O class vowel. So kol a. So the first point is, if you see a kamats in an unaccented closed syllable, it is kamats hatuf. If you see a kamats before makaf, it is a kamats hatuf. Now, if you see
Sir,
a
excuse me, sir.
kamats, yes.
So what is makif, sir?
Makaf is an horizontal stroke which is helped to join 2 or 3 words together. That's what I said here.
Okay, sir.
Kol,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, Kol Israel. Yeah. So Kol Israel, you can see that Kol is one word, Ham is another word, but these two are joined together with the help of Makaf to make them as one speech unit. So Kol is receiving kamats hatuf instead of holam because it is joined with Makaf. So when you come across a kamats before makaf, it will be a kamats hatuf and not kamats. Then before consonants with dagesh pote. So if you see a kamats before a letter with dagesh pote, then there's kamats is kamats hatuf and not kamats. Okay, A class, O class short vowel and not A class long vowel. And the last rule to differentiate between kamats and kamats hatuf is that before hatef kamats. Okay, I said that gutturals, sometimes when they have a letter before them, and if the gutturals are carrying composite or compound shivas, the corresponding vowel will be there in the counter. Okay, so here you see mohoret. Mohoret. Okay, so yes, so it is not ma, it is mo, because it is kamats hatuf. Okay, so mem kamats hatuf, khet hatef kamats, which is a composite or compound shiva, resh kamats, and tau. Okay, so 4 rules you have to keep in mind. Kamats in an unaccented
Can you
closed
repeat the
syllable
last
is
one
kamats.
again?
Yes.
So
Hello.
can you read the last one again? Can you read the last example again?
Yes, yes. Moharat.
Moharat.
Moharat. So mem followed by kamats hatuf, which is a short O class vowel. Khet followed by composite shiva, hatef kamats, and then resh followed by full vowel, long vowel, kamats, and then the final letter is tau. Kohorat. So in an unaccented closed syllable, if you see commas, that is Kamet Satuf. If you see comets before Makaf, it is Kamets Hatuf. If you see comets before Dagesh Pote, it is a Kamets Hatuf. If you see comets before composite Shivas, or so to say the Hatef comets, that is Kamets Hatuf. Okay, so these are the 4 principal rules that you have to keep in mind in order to differentiate between comets and Kamets Hatuf while reading. Okay. Yes, please, quickly.
How to identify the unaccented closed syllables, sir?
In or non, if you see, you don't see any of the accent which I have taught you. The first syllable is or. Or is not, non is accented syllable because it is the last syllable. You don't see any sign. But or, you don't see any sign. Okay. And it is a closed syllable. Why it is a closed syllable? Because it is Kamet Satuf. And Kamet Satuf is a small, short vowel. Okay. So you don't see any munna, you don't see any metek. So that is why I said it is an unaccented closed syllable. All right. You don't see any accent sign there. That is the point.
Okay.
And now, last section of this class. 2 consonants are considered to be very weak. That is aleph and he. Even ayin, but it is also a strong guttural. But aleph and ayin are considered as weak letters. Okay, so why I say this? When you see aleph in any place, it cannot be read. You will not be able to read aleph because aleph cannot be read. It is a guttural and it doesn't have any English equivalent. Okay, so only you can pronounce the name of the letter, but while reading, you will not have any alternative, to pronounce. So aleph cannot be pronounced whether in the first place, if it appears in the first place of the word, or in the middle of the word, or at the end of the word, aleph cannot be pronounced. Similarly, he can be pronounced when it appears in the beginning of a word and at the middle, in the middle of the word, but at the end of the word, if it appears, it cannot be pronounced. Okay. So aleph and he, why we are saying that they are weak letters, you have to remember, recollect what we have learned in the vowels. That is, aleph and he were vowel indicators. They functioned as vowel indicators. Okay, aleph and he for A class vowel. Okay, for ha sound that was used. All right. So he, when it comes to he can be pronounced when it is placed in the beginning or in the middle, but it cannot be pronounced when it is placed at the end. Okay, so that means what? You will see he, but you will not pronounce it. Okay, bana, you will not pronounce it. Okay. Now, there is a small dot which will be kept at the center of he when it appears when it appears as the last letter. Okay, I said that he cannot be pronounced when it appears in the end of a word. In the beginning or in the middle, it can be pronounced, but when it appears at the end of a word, it cannot be pronounced. All right. But grammarians have coined a point which is called as mapik. What is mapik? Mapik will appear like Dagesh Pote. Okay. This mapik will be placed only in he. This mapik will be placed only in he. Okay. So whenever you come across mapik as the last letter with a he, this is an indication for us to understand that here he is not a weak letter, but because of the presence of mapik, it has to be pronounced. Okay. If there is no mapik, we will not pronounce. If there is mapik, we need to pronounce it. Okay. Let me explain to you with the help of this word which I have listed out here. Okay. Okay, the mapik is appearing in the last letter here. Okay, I think one consonant is missing, one vowel is missing there. Yeah, vaik ba. Okay, vaik ba. Fine. So how to understand this? When I am pronouncing, okay, just a minute. Okay, let me project once again. Yeah. So if you see here, Vayik ba, Vayik ba, I'm pronouncing it as Vayik ba, Vayik ba. Okay. If mapik is not there, I will not pronounce he. So I will pronounce it as Vayik ba, Vayik ba. But since mapik is there inside he, I am pronouncing it as Vayik, Vayik ba. Ha, that ha sound, no, ha sound I will make when I see mapik at the end of a word. Okay, so this is especially for mapik, sorry, for he. So you should not misunderstand this and think that it is dagesh forte. No, dagesh forte will not appear in gutturals, and only when he is appearing at the end of a word and when it has to be pronounced, then mapik will appear. Okay, aleph and he are weak letters. Aleph cannot be pronounced whether it appears in the beginning or in the middle or at the end of a word. But he can be pronounced in the beginning and in the middle, but at the end when it appears, it cannot be pronounced. But it can be pronounced when it appears at the end if it carries a mapik. All right. Okay. And then I have taught about makaf. Okay. That's all for today. Maybe before we end. I request anyone to read, after which we will conclude the class.
Vai.
Who is reading?
So may I read?
Who is reading? Manoj. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Vai. Vayu Amer.
Stop, 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 stop.
Vayu Amer.
Stop,
This
stop,
is
stop, stop.
phoneme, no? Over the
Yes, yes, yes,
your
yes. Yes, yes.
Vayu Amer.
But how come it is Vayo Hamer?
Vayu Amer.
Vayomer.
Vayu
Vayomer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because of
you
the
don't pronounce
forte.
Dagesh
Vayu
Forte, and then
Amer.
no. Again, you are
Amer.
saying Vayo Amer. No, from where you get this A? There is no A.
Aleph, no? Vayu Amer.
Aleph cannot be pronounced, right?
Vayu Amer. Okay.
Exactly, Vayomer. So Aleph, whether it appears in the beginning or in the middle or at the end of a word, it cannot be pronounced. Only we pronounce the vowels that appear after Aleph. For example, in the second word, Elohim,
Vayu
I am
Amer.
pronouncing only Atef Segol, not Aleph. Okay, so Aleph and Ain cannot be pronounced.
Elohim.
Yes. So Vayomer, Elohim.
Vayu Amer. Elohim. Yahi.
Very good.
Or.
Okay, super.
Vaihi.
Va, va.
Vai Ol.
No.
Vai.
Read that. Va.
Vaihi Ol.
That Shiva is a silent Shiva or a vocal Shiva?
Silent Shiva.
No.
Vaihi
Methak is there along with the short vowel.
So it is
And if you
vocal.
come, yeah, so if you come across
Vahi,
methak either along with a long or short vowel before Shiva, that Shiva is a vocal Shiva. So
that's what I said.
Vayehi,
Vayehi. Okay.
Vayehi, exactly.
Or
Very good, very good.
Vayehi. Or.
Vayomer, yeah, Vayomer Elohim Yehi or Vayehi or. Okay, super, fantastic. Reverend Jogu,
Sir,
yes. Which one is Atna here? Which letter, which word is carrying Atna here?
Atna. Sir, IAS.
Can you
Or.
read the
IA.
or? Okay, Aleph, Holam, Vav,
Or
and Resh. Very good. Super.
fresh first.
Okay. Songli,
Yes, sir.
which one is carrying, which word is carrying Siluk?
Or
Which or? There are two words. Two times it appears.
Vayehi or last one.
Very good. Very good. So the last one after Resh is called as what?
Last after
Two
Resh.
dots.
Sof Pasuk.
Very good. Sof Pasuk. Okay. So in this word, do you see Munna anywhere?
Yehi.
Okay, super. Okay, so friends, if you see here, I said Munna appears before the tone syllable, but in this case, it is an exception. If you see here, Munna is there in the last syllable, in the single syllable. This word is having only one syllable. Okay, in the next class, we will be learning about the syllables. So we will understand a lot. Okay, all right. So hope you have understood. Otherwise, just watch the video which I will be posting. The homework will be sent for today's class. Thank you. Good night.